Hello and welcome back. All right, today we had everybody figure out the riddle from before, and the answer to that was jelly beans. And today we're going to start with a new riddle, and it says, I just lost it. How can you go without sleep for 7 days and not be tired? So let's see if you can think about that, and we're going to move on with our story. When we left the three investigators last time, they had figured out that they were looking for the mystery of the Chumash hoard. So this chapter is called the Chumash hoard. You see, boys, Professor Meeker went on, the Chumash never used gold. There was no gold in this part of the state. If that amulet was gold, it must have come from the Chumash hoard. What is it, sir? The Chumash hoard, Bob asked. Between 1790 and about 1820, the professor explained, there was a renegade band of very dangerous Chumash in the mountains. Although there were few of them, they were deadly when defending themselves and expert at hiding. The Spanish were unable to control them, so they tried to bribe them with gold to leave the settlers alone. The band soon learned the value of gold. And when the Spanish didn't give them as much as they wanted, they stole more any way they could find it. By the time they were finally beaten and their last leader, Magnus Verde, mortally wounded and captured, they were reputed to have amassed a great hoard of gold articles, jewelry, and bullion. Magnus Verde refused to tell where the hoard was hidden. All he said before he died was that no man would ever find it. The rest of the renegades vanished and were never seen again. Since then, many men have looked for the treasure without any success. I have always thought that it was thrown into some impenetrable place, perhaps the ocean, to keep the white man from ever finding it. Jupiter's eyes seemed to be looking far away. I think it would have been hard for them to throw away the gold after fighting so hard to get it. You might be right, the professor said. And if you have actually seen a Chumash amulet made of gold, there's good reason for thinking the Chumash hoard does still exist somewhere. What an exciting discovery. Perhaps the message says something about the hoard, Jupiter said eagerly. Message? Professor Meeker blinked again. Then he looked down at the slip of paper. Goodness me, I forgot all about it. Of course, it may tell us. The professor frowned as he studied the message. Primitive languages are often hard to translate exactly because the writers think in a primitive manner. But as nearly as I can make out, it says, words smoke, sing death song, brothers help. I'm afraid that's all. But it is a call for help, Jupiter asked. I would say so, the professor agreed and stared at the message with a puzzled expression. But I can't understand what a Yukwala message would be doing in a Chumash amulet. It's really a mystery. A mystery we hope to solve, sir, Jupiter pronounced, somewhat pompously. Of course, my boy, the professor smiled. And when you do, I shall be most grateful if you will allow me to examine the Chumash hoard. Professor Meeker insisted on seeing the boys as far as the gate, peering in all directions in the sunny morning to be sure that the dark man had not returned. As soon as they were by themselves again, Bob and Pete crowded around Jupiter. Gosh, Jupe, Bob explained, do you think someone has found the Chumash hoard? And someone else is trying to steal it? Pete added. Maybe the amulet is a clue to where the treasure is, and someone is still trying to steal the hoard. Maybe it's a gang of Indians robbing Miss Sandow. Pete's imagination began to run wild. The dark man sure looked like some kind of Indian. That laughing shadow could have been a wild Indian. Jupiter, his round and deceptively innocent face, deep in concentration, while his companions chattered, suddenly stopped short. Speculation won't get us anywhere now, the first investigator declared decisively. We must go to the Sandow estate and see what we can find out. Undercover, Jupe? Pete asked. You mean we should snoop around? No, we must get into the house and talk to Miss Sandow herself. She might know something vital or have seen something. The problem is, how do we get into her house? As they neared the salvage yard, they decided that the best way was to have Bob's dad call Miss Sandow and ask if they could visit the estate as part of a research project on Spanish land grants for their California history class. Hans or Conrad, the stolid Bavarian helpers of Uncle Titus Jones, could drive them. Most adults will help boys if they think it's for some schoolwork, Jupiter observed. Bob agreed, but Pete was looking ahead to the entrance to the salvage yard. "Look," Pete hissed. "There's Skinny Norris." Sure enough, their old enemy, a tall, skinny boy with a long nose, was leaning against the entrance with his back to them. E. Skinner Norris, Skinny to the boys, hated the three investigators and spent a good deal of time trying to prove he was smarter than Jupiter. He always failed, but since he had a large allowance and could drive a car because his father was a legal resident of another state where Skinny could get a driver's license, he was in the position to be annoying to the boys. "Now what's he doing here?" Bob wanted to know. "I don't expect he's come to help us," Jupiter observed wryly. "Come on, fellas, we'll go in through the red gate rover." They turned and walked quickly toward the rear of the salvage yard. Out of Skinny's sight, they hurried past the back fence, which was painted with a dramatic scene of the San Francisco fire of 1906. 50 feet from the corner, a little dog sat in the painting near a red spout of flame. They had named the dog Rover, and one of his eyes was a knot in the wood. They carefully pulled at it and reached in to release the catch. 3 boards in the fence swung up, and they slipped inside the yard. Once inside, unobserved, they crawled beneath piles of junk and through hidden passages, and finally stood before a panel that opened and admitted them into their trailer headquarters. In the office, they quickly discussed just what they would say to Bob's dad, and Bob reached for the telephone. "Jupiter Jones," a powerful female voice called from somewhere outside. Pete grunted. "It's your Aunt Matilda, Jupe. I hope she doesn't want you to work all afternoon." Before the first investigator could comment, his aunt's voice boomed out again. "Jupiter! Sakes and goodness, where does that boy get to? Jupiter! There's someone here to see you, you young scamp. A Mr. Sandow. Jupiter!" The boys gaped at each other. A Mr. Sandow had come to them, just when they were working out on a scheme on how to get into the Sandow estate. But who could this Mr. Sandow be? Miss Sandow lives alone, Bob remembered. "Come on, fellas," Jupiter said, leading the way through Tunnel 2 into his workshop and the salvage yard. Okay, on our next chapter is Jupiter Reveals a Deception, and we'll read that one later.